It was my second shooting, so I was kind of prepared.
An 8-year-old girl is getting a lot of attention online after she discussed her experience during a shooting at a baseball game in D.C. This report here from Jess Arnold at WUSA 9, and it's going to become clear why this video is getting so much attention.
Welcome to Nationals, everyone.
A steady stream of fans into Nats Park Sunday, seemingly business as usual.
This is my first time here. This is my first cap. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to enjoy this. All right.
But for many, it's impossible to shake off images of Saturday night's shooting.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
People running, ducking under seats as they tried to figure out where shots were being fired. This family of 4 says they were sitting at the third baseline, the gate where 3 people were shot outside.
Where I was sitting, I could see hands waving, telling people to get down. We weren't sure if it was a fight that had broke out or what, but as people started coming down the steps, people started saying there's an active shooter. So everybody got down under their chairs and took cover.
At least the people around us were relatively calm and just checking on the kids because there's lots of young kids out that night.
Like their 4-year-old son, King, and 8-year-old daughter, Ferris.
I just saw people looking that way, and I didn't know what was going on until I heard someone say get down, so I just started going under the seats.
Oh my gosh, how are you feeling?
It was my second shooting, so I was kind of prepared because I always am expecting something to happen.
You can see why this video got so much attention. Here is an 8-year-old girl discussing her experience with her second shooting. Essentially unfazed by this. She's always prepared. She's always expecting something to happen. This is the world these kids are now growing up in. Yes, these sorts of shootings, of course, happened before, but they are now a lot more frequent. And whether it's American gun culture, whether it's the lack of gun protections, whether it's the amount of guns in the U.S., all of this is adding up to a society where people are afraid to go out. And even if they're not afraid, they're expecting to be put in a situation where this may happen. So they're always going to be a little bit on edge, looking for, the closest exit, looking for a way out just in case something happens. It's not a way to live. This really is, unfortunately, a very uniquely American experience as a Canadian. We have the occasional rare, mass shooting or shooting in public, but it's not to the extent that it is in the U.S. I'm not, whenever I go out, I'm not thinking about looking for the exits or anything because it's not a common experience here. But for Americans, it is incredibly common. And this video now has 2.2 million views for obvious reasons. And let me get to a little bit more on my thoughts on, potential solutions here, or at least things to think about when we're talking about gun protections. But first, a little more from this event and her previous experience from Ra's story here. DC police said the incident, which sent fans and players scrambling for safety in the middle of the game, including CNN's Chris Cillizza, was a shootout involving 2 cars. 2 people were taken to the hospital, including an innocent bystander who was attending the game. Ferris's mom, Laura Nunn, told the station a man was shot to death outside of their Northeast DC Recreation Center in November while they were at toddler playgroup, the station reported. So, I'm not sure if this made news, but these are the kind of events that often don't make news because they are now so incredibly common. To have a shooting outside a toddler playgroup, and this being her second experience with a shooting in less than a year, really is absurd. Now, of course, part of the problem, the amount of guns that exist in the U.S. So top civilian gun-owning countries, firearms per 100 residents. U.S., of course, way at the top with 120.5 firearms per 100 residents. And that's because people that often own guns, they own multiple guns, which is why you have more guns than people in America. No other country even comes close to that. It really is insane. Now, recently I discussed how Canada may hold the answer to America's gun problem. And even if it isn't the answer, there are some things in there to think about. So in Canada, you need a gun license to be able to own and operate a firearm. There are mandatory training courses, and you have to wait a minimum of 28 days after you finish the training course to be able to potentially buy a firearm. There are a lot of protections put in place to ensure that whoever is trying to get a gun license and purchase a firearm, that they are stable enough and trained in a way that they are that they can actually own and operate a firearm safely. So these are things to think about when, attempting here to put protections in place for Americans. Now, of course, these have been discussed for decades, and nothing's ever getting done. Nothing's really changing. The gun culture is only getting worse. There are no simple solutions here because you can't really do a gun buyback program in a way that worked in Australia because of the amount of guns in the U.S. and the gun culture in the U.S. People just aren't going to give up their guns. So even if you do a gun buyback program, most of those people are still going to keep their weapons. There is really no, easy solution here, but there are at least protections that people should be thinking about when trying to consider what America can do to limit the amount of instances where this happens, and hopefully, create a society that is a little better for a 8-year-old girl like this to grow up in.